Let's play a joke on mom and tell her we got her a dildo. You know, I'm convinced that I think 4 of the best ways to make like a kind of like a hard, resilient human being is breath, hot, cold, and kettlebells.
You mentioned the breathing having like a DMT-like effect. I imagine that you've taken DMT before, right?
Yeah, well, taken. I mean, not like orally, but yeah, I smoked it. Yeah, I might microdose with psilocybin, maybe 3 or 4 times a month.
I was curious what your thoughts are on the whole idea of where biohacking is as a field, or when people look at biohackers.
Yeah, you know, I think I was a culprit for making a lot of that stuff popular. I think 3 years ago, I did that immersive journalism article for Men's Health magazine where they sent me on like a 6-month foray for this article. It was called New Year, New Dick.
Bad Project family, how's it going? Now, on this podcast, we talk a lot about getting your lab work done. That's why we've partnered with Merrick Health. They're a telehealth network, and they're owned by Derek for more plates, more dates. But the amazing thing about Merrick is that when they get your labs done, they have a client care coordinator go over those labs with you. Now, a lot of you, when you guys are looking at labs and looking at your testosterone, cholesterol, et cetera, what Merrick Health does is they don't immediately throw a needle at you, okay? They can help you figure out what type of things you need to do in terms of your nutrition, potentially what you need to do through your supplementation. And if you're someone who potentially has hormonal issues, whether you're advanced in age or you do have very low testosterone, Merrick will put you on a protocol that is specific to you and that helps you out with your current levels. The problem with a lot of these other telehealth networks is that when they do HRT for individuals, they give everybody the same exact thing. And that can actually damage you and not be beneficial. That's why Merrick Health's the way to go. And Andrew, how do they go about it?
Yes, that's over at MerrickHealth.com. That's MAREK health.com. And let's say you just want to get your testosterone checked, or maybe you want to get your testosterone, your estrogen, and a couple of other things. Load all those labs into your cart, and at checkout, enter promo code PowerProject10 to save 10% off all those labs. But let's say you're not sure where to start. Head over to MerrickHealth.com/PowerProject and get the Power Project panel. That's going to cover everything you need to know, including a consultation with a client care coordinator. That comes free with that. And use promo code PowerProject to save $101 off of that entire bundle. Again, MerrickHealth.com, links to them down in the description as well as the podcast show notes.
All right. Well, today we have Ben Greenfield on the show. Should be interesting. He's kind of known as like a biohacker, I guess you'd say. Mm-hmm. He's been doing hot and cold therapy and all kinds of different stuff for a long time. Lots of drugs. Yeah. Lots of different drugs. Lots of experimentation.
Yeah.
Injecting stuff into his wiener and stuff like that.
He did go that far.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Kind of, some people might label him as like a tin hat kind of guy. Like he's a guy that's probably shutting off all his Wi-Fi at the end of the day type thing. And just, you know, I don't know. I don't know what to make of some of that stuff. I shut off my Wi-Fi at night. So maybe I just need a tin hat to go along with it. I don't know.
A tin hat. You know, the cool thing about all the biohacking stuff is, number one, he knows a lot about it. But like, remember when listening to this show, there are the simple things that you can do that are going to make 95% of the difference. Mm-hmm. And then maybe a lot of the stuff we talk about here are going to be that extra 5%.
Yeah. So I think we could ask him about all kinds of weird stuff. We can ask him about feet, since we've had a foot obsession.
This man's in a fucking forest.
Hey, don't get fucking killed by a bear, okay?
God damn. I'm walking up this super steep hill behind my house so I can get up into territory where there's no bars, meaning bears. That's just how we say bears up here in Washington. Bars.
I got it. Yeah. You sent me a picture yesterday because I was kind of teasing you. I was like, oh, if you're going to be on a walk, you know, watch out for bears. And then you sent me a picture. There was a big old bear behind you. You were at like a outdoor festival or something like that, right?
Oh yeah, I brought my sons to an outdoors show last night, like a hunting and fishing outdoors expo, which really we didn't really get anything out of it aside from we bought Mom a taser.
Oh, nice.
We actually bought her a really cool little pink taser, so I had to explain to my sons what a dildo was.
Yes.
Let's play a joke on Mom and tell her we got her a dildo. And so we brought it and we put it on the kitchen table, and my son goes, "Hey, Mom, Dad bought you a Dido at the hunting show." And she takes it out, and obviously it's a taser. Those things hurt though. It's like 3,500 volts. I had them try it on me, and just about knocked me over. It's crazy.
You're really big on doing a lot of things with your kids, not just and not like in just a traditional sense. Like you expose your kids to like cold therapy, and I believe you are probably having them follow similar nutrition protocols and stuff. How receptive have they been to some of those things, and kind of how did you get them to do it? Because I think a lot of people would like their kids to be healthier, but their kids are kind of stuck on technology and junk food.
Well, my kids don't eat the same way I do. That's for sure. So they've been cooking from scratch since they were about 2 years old with mom. I mean, that's what they do. They have a cooking podcast. They do cookbooks. They do like, restaurant reviews, and they're little foodies. So they'll get up in the morning and make themselves like these giant gooey cinnamon rolls for breakfast from scratch. Or like, yesterday they made like hot cross buns, with raisins and like a colostrum cream cheese frosting. And, this morning made, I don't even know what it was. It was like this egg cake thing.
How
and
old
honestly,
are they, Ben?
I feel like every morning is like an opportunity for me to get diabetes. Because so for me, like my breakfasts are like raw liver and colostrum and bone broth and, maybe a little whey protein isolate or whatever. Cause I'm kind of like a cyclic keto guy, but my sons, bless their little hearts, are more like bakers. They're like little French bakers. So, that being said though, and they're 13 years old. And that being said, but besides our nutrition philosophies differing, because I'm one of those guys who doesn't want to make little like orthorexic, anorexic boys. Like I just rather them be able to make what they want to make and pursue their passions. And like they're using all healthy stuff, right? They'll use like Bob's Red Mill flour and coconut creams for their frosting. And it's not like they're using pure shit in the kitchen. It's just they just cook and eat different than I cook and eat. And I'm totally cool with that. Because I don't know how to bake, and I don't know how to make pasta, and they know how to do all that stuff. So that's great. And plus, young people have higher metabolisms and better insulin sensitivity anyways. So they can get away with that a little bit more. But anyways, besides that, I'm convinced that I think 4 of the best ways to make like a kind of like a hard, resilient human being is breath, hot, cold, and kettlebells. So my sons and I, we do breath, hot, cold, and kettlebells usually 3 to 5 days of the week. Typically I'll drag them out to the gym. Typical workouts for us are very simple. Like our workout a couple of days ago was just basically a ladder, 1 swing, 1 hand release push-up, 2 swings, 2 hand release push-ups. We'll work our way up to 20, work our way back down if we have a little bit more time. Head over into the sauna that's been warming up, do a breath work session, jump in about 32, 35 degrees of water for a couple of minutes while we do some box breathing. And a lot of times the breath work that we do is in the sauna, so we're getting the heat as well. But those are 4 things that I really try to prioritize from a physical standpoint with my sons every week is heat, cold, breath work, and some kind of unstable object like a kettlebell. Sometimes we use sandbags and stuff like that too.
What does the breath work look like when you do the breath work in the sauna or the cold plunge? And what is the benefit of temperature? What have you found the benefit to be for hot and cold?
Oh yeah. A great question. So what it looks like is our sweet spot is about 15 to 20 minutes for breath work. And for us, like if we've done a workout, usually we'll finish a workout because usually we'll do this right before dinner. So we'll finish up around 6:30, 6:45, throwing some kettlebells around or whatever. And then we'll dip into the sauna inside, which has already been warming up. We'll just flip it on before we hit the gym. And I use an infrared sauna. So it hits about 155, 160, but because of the, those light photons, particularly from the far infrared, penetrate pretty deeply. You'll open up a pretty good sweat, similar to what you get from a dry sauna. And I think the other setup that I really like, because I'm probably going to be moving to Idaho soon, and I'll probably do this setup at my Idaho place, is like a big old dry barrel sauna, but then take some heat resistant red lights in there. So you kind of get the best of both worlds, like the super intense dry heat of the sauna, but you can still drag some red light in there. But right now I use a Clear Light brand sauna. So we get that thing jacked up. We go in there, and we have a lot of little, like every year for the past 3 years, I brought my sons typically in one of the first months of the year, like January, February, March, I bring them to a breathwork course just to teach them how to breathe properly, add a few new breathwork technique feathers to their cap, so
is there a specific coach
breath work or
like
no. So the ones we've done the past 3 years was we did Niraj Naik. I really like him. You guys should interview him sometime. He goes by the name of the Renegade Pharmacist. Ooh. And he's used to be a DJ and also a pharmacist actually. So he knows a lot about the physiology of breath work. And he puts together some really good tracks that are anywhere from 10 minutes to an hour. And he has some good trainings online. So I brought my sons through that one about 3 years ago. I brought him through one by another guy named Josh Trent. He has a podcast called the Wellness Force Podcast, I think it's called. And he had a good program that I brought my sons through. This past year, I brought him through basically this new app that just came out. I think it's the best breathwork app right now out there. That one's called Othership. And Othership has courses and breathwork routines ranging from very quick 2 minutes just for a quick charge me up during the day, all the way up to these deep psychedelic, holotropic 75-minute breathwork sessions. And that's the one that we use right now. We do about 15 to 20 minutes on that Othership app. Typically we'll choose kind of one of the more invigorating upper sessions. It's a lot of Wim Hof style stuff, a lot of pranayama style techniques, a lot of holds, a lot of CO2 tolerance, a lot of oxygen deprivation, a little bit of box breathing. They do have nighttime relaxation sessions, but we kind of like the more invigorating stuff. And then we're usually kind of sweating by the time that we finish that, but about 3-4 times a week we're doing that. And then about 2 times a month, we drop into the sauna, we lay flat on our backs, and we do the full on 60-minute long breathwork sessions. Wow. And I mean, not only do those things get you, high as a kite, if you're looking for more of kind of that self DMT release and to really go to a place that just totally shifts you into an elevated state of consciousness using your own breath, using your own physiology. But they're also wonderful for developing heat tolerance and focus in kids. And the other thing, they don't even know this, but they're going to be great at sex when they're older. They're very happy wives because not only can they make cinnamon rolls, but they're learning a lot of pelvic locks. They're learning a lot of tantric-esque techniques. They're learning a lot of techniques that are very correlative to the multi-orgasmic male type of teachings on where you do the lock right before you're about to ejaculate, keep it in the body, and still experience the orgasm sensation. And so, a lot of these breathwork techniques transfer to sex as well, which is also what I like about that Othership app. It has a couple partner sessions, and those are usually 20-30 minutes. And oh my gosh, if you have the time for foreplay, you just hook those things up to a Bluetooth speaker in the bedroom or whatever. And my wife and I like to do those here and there. Sometimes we'll do a little a ketamine or an oxytocin nasal spray and then drop in, do 20 to 30 minutes of breath work. And it makes lovemaking amazing because all that breath work you do leading in during foreplay, you kind of keep doing while you're having sex. And, I'm convinced that sex is about one of the most sacred, special things that two human beings can experience. And, from a spiritual standpoint, and because breath is also so spiritual, the two go together like turkey and cranberries, I guess. So anyways, back to my sons. That's what our breath work looks like. And then you asked about the temperature for the cold. And really with cold, what it comes down to is the colder the water, the less time you need in it to get the benefits. So we go pretty cold. We have one of those cold tubs that we keep between about 32 to 35 degrees. And we'll either go jump in that for about 2 minutes, or we also have an above ground pool that I just don't heat. And so most times of the year, that thing's anywhere from 40 to 55 degrees. So we'll sometimes just go swim around in there for a little bit longer time, 4 to 6 minutes. And so, that's what it looks like.
You mentioned the breathing having a DMT-like effect. I would imagine that you've taken DMT before, right?
Yeah, well, taken. I mean, not like orally, but yeah, I've smoked it. Yeah.
Right. And then, so in comparison, did that feel similar, the breathing?
Well, you get similar sensations. I mean, let's face it, it's not going to blast you off like a rocket ship to the moon, like inhaling DMT will. But I mean, arguably, I think that natural release that you get from the pineal gland via things like breath work. Gosh, how do I explain this? I mean, it's kind of like, how do you build more character and how do you appreciate what you're getting out of it more? Getting dropped by a helicopter on the top of Mount Everest, or hiking Mount Everest, or having somebody drive you in their Tesla to the finish line of an Ironman triathlon, or actually doing the freaking thing. And I think anytime you achieve an altered state of consciousness through hard work, there's a little bit more of a character building payoff. And, I'm not one of those guys who says that there's no shortcuts and you can't hack your way to get to anything. But I think at the same time, like for me, it feels more rewarding. But yeah, compared to smoking DMT, it's very slight. It's a little, a lot less of an out of your body experience. But I mean, to be honest with you, like I'll shoot straight. I freaking hate DMT. Like I don't even like it. Like I don't like the way I feel. I don't like the way that it just basically just strips me completely out of my body. I don't like some of like the darker sensations I get out of it. But that same molecule, when released naturally in my body in still relatively high amounts via breath work. And when I'm sitting in that space, on a long exhale, especially during those longer sessions where I'm like 45 minutes in, and I'm able to hold that exhale sometimes for like, 3.5, 4 minutes, that silence and the space that you find in that silence, and the fact that you're a little bit more lucid and a little bit more receptive and open and aware of messages that you're getting in that silence, either messages from God or visions that you might experience or downloads that you might experience. These are all things that you can leave a breathwork session and immediately go journal and write down. Sometimes when you're using DMT or some other slightly more hallucinogenic or psychoactive substances, sometimes you don't even remember. Like you know that you had something important happen that you were supposed to remember, or some message that you got, but you're just so freaking out of it. You can't even go write it down in a journal,
Wow. So we mentioned DMT, but Mark, myself, and even Andrew's dabbled a little bit, I think, but we've messed with psilocybin before. And I'm curious because you were mentioning that it would be more ideal. Like a lot of people find these substances and they want to use them as an escape of something, or to get to another state without doing personal work before. But I'd imagine that you do use psilocybin quite a bit. What uses do you find that it's maybe useful for you, or is it even useful for you? I'm not sure.
Yeah, psilocybin is certainly something that I've used before. I wouldn't say I use it a lot. I might microdose with psilocybin, maybe 3 or 4 times a month. On like a day where I need a little bit more creativity, I'll certainly use something like the Stammet stack and take a 0.5 gram or so of psilocybin with a little bit of like a blood cell or a blood flow precursor like niacinamide or niacin, or even like sildenafil or something like that. And then the lion's mane and the psilocybin. And that's really nice, for something for which you'd want increased sensory perception or increased creativity, like either a hike in nature or a really intense like worship, prayer, song session, which I'll sometimes do, especially in the morning, just, going before God for an hour or so and going really deep. It can even be nice for like a hard workout, or for a really good creative writing session where I'm juggling a lot of book chapters and just need to be able to step back and see the forest for the trees, but then also be able to dive in and creatively tweak and edit each chapter. So, those would be some use cases for it. I would say that I very seldomly will use what many would refer to, as more like a trip dose, where I'll take 3, 4, 5, 6 grams. I've done that before, with a good journal and a mask and a good track, and have been able to have business or personal breakthroughs that I wouldn't otherwise have been able to have, and for those type of things, just because sometimes you're kind of laid out a little bit, I'll just put on a digital recorder and record what I vocalized during those sessions. And then later I'll transcribe that recording and, get access to some of the things that I voiced when my ego was set aside and I was in a little bit more of an elevated or altered state of consciousness. Cause you do think, differently when you're on these type of substances, especially when you've kind of minimized or slayed or set aside your ego to a certain extent. And I think there's benefit. My view on any of these things, to get to your question about escapism, is that, I think that in many cases, when you're talking to somebody who's done like their 38th ayahuasca retreat or whatever, and then they're going back to Peru next week, you kind of ask yourself mentally, geez, like, what's this person looking for that they're not finding from this or other substances? Because, you can go to a blissful la la land state and convince yourself that it's like this noble excursion to enlightenment. And, this time, this one time, even though it didn't work all the other times, this one time is going to be the time when you finally come back with the magic elixir, with the answer to all of life's problems. And the fact is, all you're doing is just checking out from the pain that you experience in your normal day-to-day life, because you either haven't integrated what you knew you were supposed to integrate from a previous plant medicine session, or there's just still so much pain and so much in your life that you need to address when you're in a conscious, rational, full ego on board state that you haven't yet implemented. And sometimes the plant medicine experience can be blissful and relaxing, and you can escape a lot of the pain that you experience in the logical, rational, fully connected world. But if you're in that logical, rational, fully connected world and not making the decisions and doing the hard work and implementing the things that you may have been told or may have realized that you should be implementing when you're in that more blissful, plant medicine experience, then it's not doing you any good. I mean, look, I think with any of these things, and I'm a Christian, so maybe I have a different viewpoint than some people might, but I think that God made everything that's in creation for a specific purpose. And I think that anything in creation can be abused. Like, for example, use of higher doses of plant medicine. I think the use cases for that is very few and far between. Maybe a rite of passage into adolescence for a young man or a young woman. Maybe a wedding night that you're celebrating with the spouse you've just married. Maybe your 40th birthday party. Maybe if you have had trauma or you have epigenerational trauma and you need to specifically use that to start to dissolve some of that trauma, but the idea is very popular, like especially in the health and fitness community. I don't know if you guys have noticed, you probably have, people are just like dropping this stuff like candy and going off on some journey every month. I really don't think that's the intention for these type of substances. I think they're used for cognitive enhancement in a microdosing context. Great. I think that works fine. LSD, LSA, wachuma, psilocybin, any of these things used in small amounts to enhance productivity and creativity. I think that's the best use case for them. And then higher doses would be very few and far between for, what's the guy? Jamie Wheel. He writes about this in his book, Stealing Fire or Recapture the Rapture. The rest of the time, it's just like extremely calendared hedonistic experiences that are not something that you're doing like every month, but instead use very, very few and far between and for very special occasions. You know what I'm saying?
Yes. I wanted to ask you this because it's, first off, your book Boundless is thick and it's filled with massive, information on so many different things. And it was funny because we were talking before the show of when somebody thinks of the idea of a biohacker, they typically think of somebody who has their red light glasses on, their red light on their balls, and they're fucking, just doing wild shit and messing with the lights in their house and everything, but when we look at you, when we pay attention to your stuff,
and they're also kind of scrawny and easy to kill.
Yes, yes, but exactly. You right now, you're on this podcast. You're taking a walk, probably in the cold outside. Like you put your body through stresses. And you focus on the big movers, and then it's like so many things in your book that you talk about. These are additions but these are additions to when you get the big things going. So I was curious what your thoughts are on the whole idea of where biohacking is as a field, or when people look at biohackers. And then on an aside, because you mentioned creativity earlier, I'm wondering kind of what your creative process is to be creative, because you're putting out tons of stuff on unique, different ideas all the time.
Yeah. Well, the second part of your question is the easiest. So I'll grab that low hanging fruit first.
Okay.
I think that the one thing that, especially in a wildly distracted era that we now live in, that's so simple to do, is to wake up and start checking boxes, to wake up and start doing, because let's face it, it's very easy to just have work on our plate all day. Like it's not hard to make money these days. It's not hard to have lots of things to do, and lots of emails to reply to, and lots of social media messages to check, and lots of stuff to post to your story and, to your feed. Like, you could go all day and pat yourself on the back for having done a good job, just like doing shit all day. However, it's very seldom when it comes to impactful creations that are deeper works of creation that we actually take the time to think about what those creations are going to be. I'll use a very trite and silly example, but I'll use it nonetheless, because my sons, with their cooking podcast, they had a meeting last night with one of their social media people. Like, wow. I tell my sons, I told them, don't dick around with social media. You guys don't even know how to log into your own website. Like, hire other people to do that for you, and just stick to the stuff you're good at. Like, go make cinnamon rolls and let the team do the rest. Because I honestly wish I'd done more of that when I was young. Like done a little bit less of the day to day, and just stuck a little bit more to the writing and the the podcasting and the speaking and things like that. But anyways, so they have a meeting with this guy, and he starts to explain to them some of the YouTube tactics that help to make videos successful. Like, could you do a podcast about how to make hot cross buns, or could you instead have the whole video be titled, "How many hot cross buns can a 13-year-old fit into their mouth?" But then have, as a part of that video, of course, is the recipe, but it's different because it's a pattern interrupt, right? And he was using a guy named Mr. Beast on YouTube as an example of this. Yeah. And, I overheard some of the conversation that their social media guy was having with my sons. And he explained, well, one of the things this guy does is, this Mr. Beast guy, who makes a lot of really successful videos on YouTube, is he carves out time each day to just sit and think about what videos he wants to do. To literally just sit there doing nothing but thinking about what he's going to do. Now, that's smart. That's very smart. I'll tell you guys why. One of the best business books ever written is called The Road Less Stupid. And the author of The Road Less Stupid, the entire book is based around this idea of carving out thinking time as an entrepreneur, or as a creator, or as an artist, or as a storyteller for yourself on a regular basis. Not necessarily every day, like the strategy that this guy presents in his book is 2 or 3 times a week. As a business owner, you're just giving yourself about 40 to 60 minutes to sit there with a pen and a journal and a couple of questions that you're trying to solve. Like, why didn't more customers come to this website when I launched this new product? Or, what are my competitors doing right now in my space that I'm not doing? Or what is an emerging market, like, say, NFTs or the metaverse or whatever, that I'm not in right now? And what would it take for me to get there? And these aren't meetings. These aren't talks. This isn't getting things done. This isn't checking boxes. This is literally just like sitting there, stroking your chin and thinking. And so for me, getting onto your question about creativity and my approach is, I have every single day where, after I get up and I made a little coffee, and typically, like, I'll do some silly, I do some silly biohacking things in the morning, like to, I get on some red light and I jump up and down on a trampoline and I do some breath work and I do some foam rolling. Like, I just got to freaking move my body before I have that thinking time or that meditating time. But after I do that for about 15 minutes, first thing of the day, usually I get up. I'm usually up sometime between like 3:45 and 4:30. And so usually by about 5 a.m., I'm just sitting there, in my little man cave down in the basement with a journal and a pen. And I'm sitting there and I play some nice music in the background and I'm praying and I'm meditating and I'm reading my Bible and I'm writing in a journal and I'm stopping and I'm listening to myself and I'm listening to God. And I just carve that time out each morning. And then in addition to that, twice a month, this sounds silly, but this is the way I do it, guys. Twice a month, I get a 3-hour massage. And I set up a vocal recorder underneath the table. And during the entire massage, I just think about problems I've been having during the week. And I talk to myself about ways that I might tackle them, right? So every morning, I got 20 minutes. And twice a month, I got 3 hours. And those are the times when I have like my quiet time to just be super creative and step away from all the busyness and give myself permission to just think about problems and to think of ideas for articles and to think of ideas for books and to think of ideas for podcasts. And so that's how I tackle the creativity piece. Now back to the biohacking thing. I think that it does get a little bit silly these days. We got a whole bunch of people running around like Muppets with their, with their red light panels and their self-quantification devices and their ring and like their 8 different brands of mouth tape and, and then, the different, oils and fats. And now I don't have the short chain fatty acid and long chain fatty acid. I got the medium long short chain fatty acid. I'm putting in my coffee and my tea now. And, it's just all these things. It's almost like this competition to see who can do the weirdest shit to hack their biology. And look, the way I look at things is we as humans from an ancestral standpoint, I don't think we've been around that long. I think that the earth is somewhere around 7,000 to 8,000 years old. So we haven't been around that long, but still long enough to where we have developed this ancestral connection with nature that we are fighting a constant daily evolutionary mismatch against with, our setting in a modern post-industrial era, sitting inside all day, being largely connected, having the hip flexors shortened and the glutes turned off, not lifting heavy things as part of our job. And so having to fabricate that in a fake gym context, being in boxes a lot, driving in a box, sitting in a box, sleeping in a box, working out in a box, and in relatively predictable versus unpredictable scenarios because the outdoors and nature is more predictable or is more unpredictable. And so what I look at when it comes to a lot of these biohacks is basically, how can I simulate or even like hyper concentrate a lot of the things that my ancestors would have been getting in nature? So yeah, I can't be out in the sunlight all day, but I can literally just like blast myself with near and far infrared via like photobiomodulation panels in my office or like a headset that will deliver infrared light, to my skull or infrared sauna or something like that. I can't drink from a fresh mountain spring, but I can biohack my water at home with a, double carbon block filtration that passes through like a structured water vortex. So the water is more like the way that it would be if it were traveling underground in a spring. Or I can't be like outside barefoot all day, but I can wear minimalist shoes or go barefoot in my house and have like grounding and earthing mats that I can stand on that are plugged into a grounding outlet, or like in the case of my office, just in a wire that's planted a metal stake out in the ground, so I can be like grounded and earthed while I'm standing or working in my office during the day. I can't necessarily be subjected to the stressors of heat and cold and environment because I'm not working outside building fences or herding sheep or hunting or anything like that, at least not on a typical day. But I can get in the sauna every day and sweat my ass off for 20, 30 minutes. And then I can go get into something super cold at least once a day. So I'm simulating those environmental stressors and hormetic stressors. So most of the stuff I look at as biohacking is not like, what's this easy, comfortable shortcut that I can take so I can skip doing the hard work? It's more like, how can I simulate nature and then pair that with doing the hard work, right? So like this morning, yeah, I worked out, and yeah, it was an atypical workout because I'm like a biohacker. So I had like blood flow restriction bands on with icy cold water circulating through the blood flow restriction bands with my feet attached to a grounding pad. And I had like 30 minutes of high intensity intervals well connected to this biohacking machine called it was called a Vasper. Well, I'm breathing pure oxygen, but during each of the intervals, I'm flipping a button and breathing basically hypoxic air. So I'm essentially training my CO2 tolerance and then blasting my cells with oxygen in between each. And then I stand up out of that and I walk over to the barbell and I'm doing deadlifts and kettlebell swings and just basically like Russian twist with a medicine ball. And yeah, that like sucks and it hurts. And it's not like easy shit. I think that's the problem with a lot of biohackers is like, they're basically, oh gosh, like this sounds really bad. I don't want to get negative, guys, but they're just like weak ass people who basically got like beat up a lot when they were little kids, but they were kind of nerdy. So they figured out some technical ways to stay fit, but they've never actually done hard shit. Right. And I think that's the problem with biohackers is like do the cool, like biohacking stuff, but get out and do hard shit too. You know what I'm saying? Like lift heavy stuff, get cold, sweat, but sweat hard. Like, it's not all about just basically putting on some fancy laser lights and then like some electrodes on your stomach to get 6-pack abs.
Pat Project family, how's it going? We talk about sleep all the time on this podcast. That's why we partnered with 8 Sleep mattresses. Now, this mattress is the Tesla of sleep. It's the Tesla of beds. Its technology tracks your heart rate variability. It changes its own temperature based off the way you sleep so that you get better sleep every single night. It is quite literally insane. Check them out. Andrew, how do they get it?
Yes, and before I do that, I wanted to let you guys know that you can actually set the bed to wake you up silently. I know that sounds weird, but actually the bed starts vibrating around your head and it doesn't wake up the entire household the way my phone used to do back in the day. So now I just kind of have the bed wake me up silently and it's amazing. You guys got to head over to 8sleep.com/power project. That's EIGHT sleep.com/power project. When you guys go there, you'll see a banner across the top saying that you're going to receive $150 off automatically. So again, that's 8sleep.com/power project to receive $150 off your Pod Pro cover or your Pod Pro cover and mattress combo. Links to them down in the description as well as the podcast show notes. Let's get back to the podcast.
What are some of the harder things that you experienced? Because you've done ultras, you've done bodybuilding, you've done triathlons, you've done all kinds of stuff. What's the hardest? And do you still do some of these activities? Do you still run? Do you still bodybuild? Do you still mess around with some of those things?
First of all, I really don't do much of that hard shit anymore. That was a chapter in my life. And now like I play tennis with my family. I do the kettlebells and the heat and cold and breath work with my sons. I mess, for about a half hour a day, I'll like go deep and do something hard. But compared to the days of like Ironman triathlon and, obstacle course training where it would like, just like training was lifestyle for me, like the weekend rolled around and I'd be out running 20 miles and then, hammering to some town 100 miles away on my bike and, coming back from the bike ride and before dinner, swimming 3 miles while I stared at the black line at the bottom of the pool. Or, typical Saturday morning workout was I built like a half-mile long obstacle course at my house. And I'd literally just be like 2.5 hours running, climbing ropes, monkey bars, hauling 100-pound sandbags up the hill. And, not for like a 20-minute hit routine, but literally for like 2.5 hours doing that shit. And I just, my identity isn't tied to that anymore. I think it built a lot of character and perseverance and taught me a lot, but I feel like I'm called to do more meaningful things like, writing articles and producing books that help people find a little bit deeper fulfillment and meaning in life and, and being with my sons during their formative years and loving them and, just slowing down and savoring creation a little bit and not feeling like I got to beat myself up in order to prove myself to the world that I'm a man or in order to like, scratch some itch of, let's face it, probably a little bit of like exercise addiction, stuff like that, or just like training really hard so I could eat whatever I want. Like there's all sorts of little things that go on mentally, with all these hardcore type of endurance activities. It's literally not just, doing something so you can inspire people and climb your own personal Mount Everest. A lot of times there's like some crazy, nasty, selfish and addiction type of shit tied into some of that stuff. You guys hopefully get what I'm saying. But anyways, as far as like the hardest stuff, I would say like the top 3 hardest things that I did was the Commander Mark Devine's Kokoro, like his little like Navy SEAL Hell Week thing that he does for civilians. That was hard shit. I mean, I won't lie. It was like 26-mile night hikes wearing, shitty backpacks full of sand with a beat down every mile while you're eating nasty, MREs and then going and sit in the Pacific Ocean until you're hypothermic for like 8 hours, and you never know what you're going to be doing next, and the whole thing's just a mind fuck because they never tell you what you're going to be doing next. And don't get me wrong, like if you tell me I got to go climb to the top of that mountain way off in the distance and stop and do burpees and climb under barbed wire every hour during that climb, I'll be like, all right, well, you told me what I got to do, I'm just going to do it. But if you just tell me like, put on your shoes, put on this backpack and go walk this way, I'm not going to tell you anything else. Like the whole time in the back of your mind is like, you just don't know. You can't prepare mentally. So that whole thing was kind of a mind fuck. But, I told my sons, I'm like, hey, when you guys are 18, you should go do this. 'Cause it'll make everything else in life feel really easy. So that was a hard one, that Kokoro camp. I think they had to like change it or something, or like alter the way that they put it on. 'Cause apparently a couple of years after I did it, some guy's heart exploded during the event and they had to like move it and change up some of their protocols. And I don't want to put words in Commander Mark Devine's mouth, but I think it's a little bit different now. But that was called Kokoro. That was pretty hard. The next one was the Joe DeSena, who runs the Spartan organization. He puts on this thing called a death race. And so I was the idiot who signed up for the death race during the cold snap that they had back in Vermont, where it was 32 degrees below zero. My buddy picked me up from the Boston airport. He had his dog in the car and he drove me like out of the backwoods of Vermont for this event. And the dog wouldn't even get out of the car because the ground was like burning the bottom of the dog's like paws. And within like the first 30 minutes of the thing, 2 girls had to drop out. One got 2 of her toes amputated because they were frostbitten. I couldn't even like pull my Gatorade bottle, out to take a drink because it was frozen. So I had to keep that up against like, up in my armpits, like an example of an aid station where you just like run by and there'd be like a bunch of fish, like frozen fish on sticks sticking up out of the snow. And you had to figure out how to use your fire making kit and, water or Gatorade or whatever to like boil the fish in this shitty little pot. And like, oh my gosh, it's like the whole thing. They shouldn't have even done it.
People died.
They were like, nobody died, but there was like EMTs and paramedics like there the whole time. And I remember like my heart fell like when we were a day into it was like a 3-day event, we're just going all day and all night. And I heard a couple of like the people putting it on, like talking in hushed voices. They're like, what should we have them do next? You think that's safe? And I'm like, oh shit, they're just making this up as they go. And so that was hard. And yeah, but again, now anything I do that's cold doesn't feel that cold compared to that. So, everything just kind of sets a standard. And then probably the third hardest thing was just like, I competed in the Ironman World Championship 6 times down in Hawaii on the island of Kona. And like an Ironman is hard, but like not anybody, but like doing an Ironman isn't that hard. Like you could technically get up, could take a couple hours to swim a few miles, ride a bike kind of slow because the cutoff's like 17 hours and then like walk a marathon and you could do an Ironman. Like it's not that hard to do an Ironman. But when you race in Ironman World Championships, it's like, all these like gilled out Germans and Speedos and super fast people. And everybody's been to the championships and everybody's been training for like 9 months to get there. And everybody's going way faster than you're comfortable going, for a 2.4 mile swim and a 112-mile bike ride. And, you have a marathon for dessert, you run 26.2 miles. And so you're just like outside of your comfort zone the whole time because you're trying to podium and it's super hot and super windy. And so I think the Ironman World Championships was hard, not because of like the nature of the event, like the distance isn't hard, but just like the fact that everybody's going way faster than you're comfortable going. And so the whole time you're just basically breaking all the rules about pacing yourself and hoping your body's just going to somehow survive the day. So those are a few of the harder things, but yeah, I have no desire to do. I mean, yeah, if somebody offered me like whatever, $50,000 to go do an Ironman or something just as a publicity stunt, I'd probably do it. But like that's about the only reason I'd be interested in doing that stuff anymore, is if somebody gave me a fat paycheck to go torture myself for the day.
Do you run at all now, or bike just recreationally here and there?
I run to the mailbox, and if my kids are chasing me, or if I'm playing tennis. But no, like I haven't run in like a year and a half. Like actually gone on a run. I literally have not gone on a run in like a year and a half.
Okay, when you were something that you mentioned that I thought was really cool is, for example, you've done those really, really hard things, but it makes it so that, like, for example, doing the death race and being out in that type of cold. Now, when you come and you go in your cold plunge device at 32 degrees, it doesn't feel that bad. Just like, we've done bodybuilding shows, and now maintaining a leaner type of physique is not that bad because a bodybuilding show is much worse. Or doing a powerlifting meet and getting that strong, well, we don't necessarily do that anymore, but maintaining a decent level of strength is not that hard because you've gone and you've done the harder thing. Now, the thing that most people would think is hard to do is much easier. And I think that's something that's beneficial that people can think about to try to do for themselves.
Yeah, and I think it even extends into like the mental realm, like that quiet time that I was talking about for 20 minutes in the morning. Most people, they have difficulty being present during the day, and not just like flopping around like a Muppet during the day from activity to activity, from checkbox to checkbox, and not really stopping to ask themselves, why am I doing this in the first place? What's the ultimate goal for this task I'm doing aside from just getting it done? Or am I truly connecting with this person versus, doing what I said I was going to do, which was whatever, meet them at the gym or have a coffee, but am I actually connecting to this sacred soul who's going to go on to live for eternity? Am I making eye contact? Am I listening to the timbre of their voice? Am I feeling the electromagnetic signal coming off their body? If I'm truly present, even smelling the pheromones and chemical signals that their skin's producing? Like, there's so much that we miss out on when we're not present. And there's so much more capability to be present when you just stop and carve out time each day to sit with yourself. Because if you can't be present with yourself, you're going to have a hell of a time being present in any other situation in your life. And so, like, for example, one tip I can give people just to begin to build presence is, like when you wake up in the morning, even if you don't have time to meditate or journal or sit or, carve out 20 minutes or whatever, just like listen to a song. And as you listen to the song, be fully immersed in it. I mean, fully immersed. Like, what you're trying to do is identify the space between the notes. Okay. It's difficult to explain, but if you listen to a song and you truly listen to it intentionally, you'll know what I mean. It should preferably be a song that's not like too driven with lyrics, preferably something instrumental. Like, one that I like, especially for my mornings, is there's a Spotify playlist called Soaking Worship. And it's just like this really great like worship channel, but it's got no words. It's just like these really moving, epic, songs, very orchestral. And listen to it and try to literally listen for the gaps between each note. And if you can listen for the space between the notes on a song, you're going to find yourself beginning to notice the eye color and the little lines and blood vessels in the iris of someone who you're talking to that you're actually making eye contact with. And you're going to start to notice the subtle variations in their vocal inflections and their vocal tone. And you're going to be sitting and eating a bite of food and recognizing not just one, not just two, but 5, 7, 10, 12 complexities of flavor in each bite. And you're going to be chewing each bite 25 to 30 times, focusing on the actual presence of that food in your mouth. And when you make love, you're going to have all your senses tuned on and be feeling even the slightest little puff of breath coming out of your lover's nostril. And you're going to be able to just experience and savor creation in a far different way than nearly everybody walking the face of this planet, especially nearly every Westerner walking the face of this planet who's got a fucking smartphone supercomputer in their hand that they can't get disconnected from. They're thinking about the 8 different things that they got to get done because we live in an information era that's rife with FOMO and the opportunity to do so many things that we're rarely just doing one thing at once for which we can be present. But the people who can actually listen to what I'm saying and train themselves to be present, with these little things each day, starting with something as simple as listening to a song and finding the space between the notes, all of a sudden, life becomes a lot more magical. And you know what? It becomes a lot more magical without needing to pop some psilocybin or whatever to find that beauty or to increase those sensory perceptions. So I think that's something that's important.
What is something that you're into now, like at the moment, like what over the last maybe year or so, what's something that you have gravitated towards? Over here, we've been working on some like mobility stuff along with doing some stuff with like the feet and working on hip flexors and stuff like that. Like what's something that you feel has made a big difference for you within the last year or so?
Borrowing using like an 80-20 approach, 20% of the moves and the exercises in a lot of these programs are going to produce 80% of the results. And so, I obviously being in the health and fitness arena, I get exposed to a lot of this stuff and I've borrowed bits here and there that are just woven into my week. So yeah, breath work is a big part of that. A few other things that I've really just started to do, probably because I'm getting old. So I'm just interested in feeling good and moving better and having better gait patterning and building, it's like when you're young, you're all pec major, deltoid, glute max,
don't forget the biceps,
quad, hamstring, gastroc, biceps. And when you get old, you start to realize, I've been neglecting, glute med, rotator cuff, the tibialis anterior, the flexor hallucis and the big toe muscles, and basically, and honestly, like a lot of the inspiratory and expiratory and diaphragmatic muscles, as well as the deep pelvic muscles as well. And so what I've really been figuring out is that I move better, I feel better, and a lot of my other workouts actually go a lot better. Even the workouts that are using a lot of the primary muscles or the larger muscles, when I'm focusing on some of these other components that I've discovered just by borrowing from some really good programs. So what I mean by that is, for example, Ben Patrick, knees over toes, like love his ATG book that's got 2 different workouts in it that are like these longevity based exercises. I took a few of the best from those 2 workouts, like acid grass split squats and tib raises and band pull aparts and some of the reverse hypers, and just basically put all those together into one 20-minute workout that I do twice a week. Another folks who I know you guys are familiar with, I forget his name, the GOATA guy, Gary
Scheffler.
Yeah, Gary. So the idea of, while I'm in gait, focusing on the outside of my foot, doing a few walks where when I'm pushing off, I'm rotating my back foot to about 22.5 degrees and doing a little bit more of a push off in almost like a pigeon-toed format, and then working in some bear crawls where, I'm also at about 22.5 on the hands, 22.5 on the feet, interior rotation. And, sometimes I'll even use, I'll use one of your bands, Mark, around my hips for those crawls. And so using some more like the indigenous hunter-gatherer and human baby type of angles. And another thing that I do in the sauna is I keep some of the wedges for the feet, the sole steps that David Weck makes, so that I can kind of be in that biomechanical position and just, fuck around in the sauna with some squats and some lunges in that position. So I like GOATA. I like Ben Patrick. Another example would be someone who more works with women, but who I think has a great program, Denise Conway, and her, don't laugh guys, called the Flower Empowered, right? Ooh. She teaches all these hypopressive exercises and pelvic core strengthening exercises for women. But I tell you what, like for me to be able to train my deep diaphragmatic muscles, to work on some of the organs that tend to get pushed down with gravity, and to learn how to do things like hypopressive breathing, things like working the perineum and some of the deep pelvic core muscles with like lacrosse balls, and just paying more attention to that one area that frankly massage therapists don't work on much, and breathing techniques that we really don't learn from some of these other breathwork protocols that are specifically designed for supporting organs, digestive function, prolapse, incontinence, some of those other things that occur with age. I've found that program to be really good. Another example would be back to David Weck. Like, I know he's kind of a funky guy, but some of his core coiling methods and going on walks where I actually am focusing literally on storing energy and then releasing it as I swing my arms across the body. I like his handheld things. I forget what they're called, but basically going on walks with those where I'm swinging my arms across my body. I still do some of his Bosu exercises. I still do some of his club exercises for warm-ups. And I like that idea of coiling and releasing energy. Like his stuff and the Goda stuff, they go together pretty well. And if I could think of one other, it would probably be, let's see, I talked about the Othership app, Goda, Ben Patrick. Eric Goodman. Eric Goodman's core foundation exercises for decompressing the spine. Again, like a lot of this stuff is based off what gravity does to the body with age, or faulty movement patterns that develop as we age due to us falling back on primary muscles rather than some of these smaller stabilizers. But Dr. Eric Goodman has these exercises called core foundation exercises that combine diaphragmatic breathing, spinal decompression, some like internal rotation and loading of the hands and feet that are similar, again, to like Goda, for example. I really like his programs, and we'll weave a few of those in when I'm like in the sauna in the morning or like stretching when I wake up. And so I would say the big thing for me is I just kind of like pick up little things as I go through my life, and I won't like jump hardcore full on, like drinking all the Kool-Aid from anybody's program, but I borrow little bits here and there, and then I put them all together for what works for me and my body and my time limitations and my training environment and my training goals, which frankly right now are just basically longevity and healthy movement patterns.
What about training of the penis? We recently dove into some penis pumping and we've had some sex experts come on the show. Has there been anything that you've learned more recently about that? You did mention like pelvic floor, and I think men don't realize that we got a pelvic floor as well. Have you learned anything more recently in that department?
And real quick, I do want to add on to that because I've seen this comment from women in the audience. Ladies, we know that you are all individuals and not one thing works for all of you. We're just trying to get better so we can do a bunch of different shit, okay? Anyway, Ben, please help us out.
Yeah, I think I was a culprit for making a lot of that stuff popular. I think 3 years ago, I did that immersive journalism article for Men's Health magazine where they sent me on like a 6-month foray for this article. It's called New Year, New Dick. They had me do everything from PRP and stem cell injections into my penis to the penis pump, to the gas station dick pills, to no ejaculation for a month, to the multi-orgasmic tantric breathing techniques. It was like, gosh, everything. And yeah, I mean, like a lot of that stuff works. Penis pumps work. Yeah, the PRP injections work. Yeah, the shockwave therapy, the Gainswave for opening up new blood vessels works. Yeah, stem cell injections, absolutely. That was probably one of the most effective things that I did during that entire protocol.
Hey, now.
For long-term lasting results for firmness, for even like quality of orgasm, kind of similar to the PRP injections, but a little bit more of an effect. And I think probably in addition to just that whole lineup of stuff, really I think the two main things come back to breath. One would be during all of my breath work, and this really helps out too with just a lot of like the like incontinence, organ prolapse, those type of things that can occur as you age, is nearly every time I do breath work, I am essentially doing Kegels. I'm squeezing on the exhale, I'm relaxing on the inhale. And when I say squeezing and relaxing, I'm literally talking about stopping the flow of urine, doing Kegels. And so every day with those breath work, that means every day I'm doing like 15 to 20 minutes of Kegels. That in terms of the effects on my orgasms, specifically like the length and the intensity of the orgasms, has been amazing. Like, I think a lot of guys hear about Kegels, but they're kind of like, they start doing them and then they don't, and they pick it up here and there. But like, I literally do 15 to 20 minutes of Kegels almost every day. And then I keep a Captain's of Crush hand grip in my car. And when I'm driving in my car, I'll just like go left hand, squeeze 5 times, right hand. But every time I squeeze, I'm also squeezing all the deep pelvic muscles. And every time I release the hand grip strengthener, I'm relaxing all those deep muscles. And so I'm getting a lot of that Kegel exercises just while I'm driving around in my car as well. So that's one thing. Another couple of things that I messed around with for a little while, just because I'm constantly trying stuff, is there's one company called Innovio, and they make like electrical muscle stimulation shorts that you actually pull on, and they literally just like stim all your nether regions, all your pelvic floor muscles. Now I think one of those the M Sculpt device that Judson Brandis likes, they also make one called an Mcella. I haven't used it, but apparently you sit on it and it does something similar. But essentially this is like electrostimulation for a lot of those deep pelvic core muscles. And literally it's like training all these muscles to contract and relax and teaching you how to recruit them in some really cool ways. And so 2 other things that, again, these are kind of fringe, but I know you guys just kind of like to hear about, any and all this stuff. So PEMF, if you have a PEMF mat, there's a lot of good data on PEMF for both testosterone as well as your sperm quality. And so what I have is one of these PEMF mats. I used to have the one by Pult Centers, and you can sit on it. And so you can just sit cross-legged on it while you're reading a book or journaling or doing breath work or whatever. And it's literally doing like PEMF up into your crotch.
What is PEMF?
And so you're getting a pulse electromagnetic field therapy.
Oh.
And so, a lot of athletes will use this for blood flow, for oxygenation, et cetera. But there's no reason you can't just like sit on the mat. And the smaller the mat, the more concentrated the treatment is. And you can do a treatment just for your crotch. And then the last one that's interesting, for a while, I messed around with, just because I was curious about, prostate orgasms and what the prostate gland orgasm feels like. And obviously you got to go into the rectum to stim the prostate. And, my wife and I messed around with that a little bit. And I honestly didn't really get much out of it or like it that much. But what I have found is that, and I actually did try this, like I will try anything. They make like these, it's electrical muscle stimulation, but it's literally like a ass EMS device that you put up your butthole, and it stims all your deep pelvic core muscles from the inside, contract, relax. And it's literally doing like electrical muscle stimulation for all the muscles that you can't get to if you're like sitting on a device or wearing shorts or whatever. And that thing had such an impact on like my ability to be able to control ejaculation and do a better job with these multi-orgasmic techniques that I still use it once a week. It's like 7 minutes. I lay on my bathroom floors, grab a book, and that thing is just like contract, release. It's literally like a workout for all of like your inner butt and prostate muscles and some of those tiny muscles that are just like right above the dick.
What exactly is it called?
That one's called a who's it made by? It's called like an electrical Kegel wand exercise. Or a lot of women use them in their vaginas. Also for vaginal strengthening. I think it's called like Affirm or something like that. I forget the name of it. I forget the name of it. I don't remember, but it's like an electrical muscle stimulation. Like look up like electrical muscle stimulation Kegel device, and it'll look like kind of like a dildo type of shaped wand that's literally just connected to this little computer. And I realize it sounds kind of weird, but I mean, the thing actually works
Male
pretty
Kegel
well.
exerciser. I found it.
Yeah, something like that.
Wow.
Yeah. Well, by the way, guys, I have another podcast in about 10 minutes. I just wanted to warn you.
Yeah, no problem. I'm curious, what do you have on your feet while you're on this hike here?
I have old school Brooks. I don't know. It's like the Brooks Beast or whatever. I get the whole, barefoot, spread the toes, Vibram 5-finger thing. My problem is like a lot of times I'll take phone calls and stuff and walk and do shows like this. And some days I'll walk like 25,000 steps.
Right.
And I find if I get too minimalist with the footwear, I always step on some big rock or something that seems to like sprain my toe and it just like defeats the purpose. And then I'm like wrapping my toes with kinesio tape and trying to fix that stuff. Or you get like some Achilles issues because there's almost like not enough padding, especially walking on hard surfaces. So I wear more like these shoes are called Brooks. They're kind of built like the Hokas. Like those big built up running shoes. Yep. So I wear like some pretty cushiony shoes when I'm going on long walks, but then rest of the time, including when I'm working out, I'm usually like barefoot or super zero drop minimalist.
Cool. Thank you so much for your time today. Where can people find out more about you and where can people find your books and stuff like that?
Just on the internet. Places like that.
There we go.
I'm a Instagram or Twitter or Facebook. I'm on them all. I'm even looking into some of these newer like decentralized ones like Getter and Zion. You guys know how it goes. You can barely keep up. But honestly, like my main portal, pretty much like everything I do is at bengreenfieldlife.com.
Awesome, man. Have a great rest of your day. Thank you so much for your time.
Hey, I love you guys. Thanks for having me on, and enjoy the weekend, guys. Listen for the silence between the notes. All right.
Yes.
Catch you later.
Thank you, sir.
See you later. Catch you on the flip side. Later.
I feel like we won something today. Like that was awesome. We got a lot of penis information.
Mark, you're all about the dicks now, aren't
you?
One of the comments I see.
You're gonna have like YouTube. A rogue attachment sex swing, coming in soon.
Pretty easy to do.
I don't know why some of these guys in the comments are like annoyed at us. Like all we're trying to do is improve.
Oh, people are mad at us?
Some guys in the comments are like, I don't know why they're doing this so much. It's like, so all they're talking about is dicks. Like, no, we don't only talk about dicks, but we have them and we want to improve them. All right. We're not just trying to walk around with average cacks. So as we improve our dicks, you improve yours too. And your lady or guy is happy with you.
Well, I just know he had a lot of information about it too. So I figured why not?
And I'm definitely going to grab myself that Kegel.
Man, I don't.
Nah. Yes. No. Yes.
Can I borrow yours?
Dog.
Can we wear them during the show?
Dog. I'm excited for this Denise Conway lady, the one that did all.
Right.
Because, I honestly had an app. Actually, I still have it. I haven't used it in a minute, but it's a Kegel app on this phone. And it literally counts down for you holding certain Kegels. Because there's a while I did that. And it makes a difference. Like training those pelvic floor muscles and flexing and relaxing, you become more aware. And that plays a huge role in
oddly
you
gets
not bussing.
Tiring very quickly.
It does. But you could, it's like when you don't, if you've never bench pressed, you're weak initially, but you get strong quick. Same thing with Kegels, especially with these muscles, because once you start doing that, you're like, you could hold in anything. But I'm definitely going to get that rectal thing.
Which one was it? Because I see a couple on Google.
I see a few, man. I typed in electrical Kegel wand and something came
PMF up. And
the PMF mat.
Yeah, a bunch of stuff. But special shorts that light your balls on fire.
Yeah.
Is it by Attain?
Probably.
It's not loading. Yeah, I don't know. Something shocking inside my anus.
Pretty cool that he's got such a diverse background: bodybuilding, ultra marathons. I don't know how many times he competed, but I know that he competed a little bit in bodybuilding. I just think it's cool, and then now he just is. Even though he's still working out intensely, it's more just like feel better.
Yeah. And he's a biohacker I appreciate primarily because he understands the big movers. The big mover is your physicality and your habits and all these things.
That's a biohack right there.
That's a biohack.
Just go fucking exercise.
Yes.
And then get some sunlight. Try to make sure you have good quality sleep. Stay hydrated.
Walk. When he was talking about
have some time to yourself.
Have some time to yourself. And as he was talking about the creativity aspect of things, we were talking about this yesterday. Like I found that the time when things start to really flow is when walking. Literally when walking and I have my phone with me and I'm trying to think of something, I think of it much quicker and it comes much smoother if I'm in motion and locomotion. And you mentioned there's a lot behind that. I didn't even realize.
Yeah, there's studies. I mean, there's from what I recall, there's I think it's What I've Learned. I think it's that guy. He talks a lot about walking, and then he talks about how there's been studies done at like specific speeds. So if you're just kind of strolling, you might get some creativity, but if you're walking a little faster is probably where you're going to get hit with more stuff. So they recommend 3.7 in this study that they did, which is moving pretty good. You know, you got to be kind of intent and purposeful to be walking at that speed if you're not used to walking at that speed.
Yeah, I wanted to ask him about grounding because he mentioned it a couple times. We got some grounding mats, and I'll kind of stand on it barefoot and even sometimes work standing on it. But
is that an earthing the same thing? Or
yeah, it's the same thing. Yeah, and I ordered it because somebody on the comment section had recommended it. So I'm like, oh, let me check this out. And they just have some crazy bold claims, you know, like what it can do. It's just like, oh, it's impossible to get inflammation if you're grounded, and like, you know, some weird shit like that.
Inflammation in your feet or inflammation
like your whole body. Like it's, at least that's what it.
Well, I believe like, you know, I'm going to totally mess a lot of this up, but I believe the earth has like an energy charge to it. You know, it has like ions and shit like that. And I think when you go to like, especially a place like the beach and you walk on the beach barefoot, the salt water, the sand, like all that stuff is really beneficial. But even just walking outside your house and standing in the grass, which would be cold and wet, you can just kind of logically know that like that's probably what we used to do. Probably used to do that a lot. But now it's like, you know, God forbid I actually really go outside and bear the elements of the earth. Let me put on a sock to cover up my feet, and then let me stuff it into a shoe and make sure that I don't make any actual contact with the earth.
Right.
And I was telling Nsima the other day, I was like, people drive from one box to another, and they get to that box by driving in a box that has wheels on it. And it's all climate controlled. And so we don't really deal with the actual earth. And when we are dealing with the earth, we try to figure out ways of blocking it by putting on clothes, putting on shoes. And then somebody walks into somebody else's office and they go, wow, this is beautiful. Look at that giant window. And it's like, oh, that's cool. We can see the outside, but thank God we're not actually outside because that could be dangerous.
Yeah. It is weird. So like when I'm standing on this earthing grounding mat or whatever, and if I touch the top of my laptop, it doesn't shock me, but like I can feel something weird going on.
Wait, whoa.
So
when you're standing?
So standing on the mat, and then like I close my laptop case or like flip the cover down. And if I like rub or like skim my hand across the top of my laptop, I can feel it like buzzing. And then if I step off the mat and I do the same thing, it's smooth. It almost feels like there's a texture to it when I'm on the grounding mat. So I'm wondering if A, like the wiring is fucked up in my house, or B, like when I ground myself, my laptop is like getting ready to like short circuit because it's not like legit grounded or something.
Okay. Question. Grounding mat. It's not the mat I was thinking about that has like the ridges and the rocks and shit.
No.
It's not that.
Just imagine like a very small yoga mat with a plug that plugs into just the neutral part of the outlet of your house. So, you know, like there's two, then there's a one pin in the middle. So it just plugs into that grounding spot.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay. I didn't, looks like I was tripping. I thought it was just one of those textured mats so your feet could get different things. No. Okay.
No.
Okay.
But yeah, exactly. It's out there. But we got them, and it just, I don't know. It's one of those things. It's creatine. I'm taking it just because.
Creatine. You know,
because there was a study done a long time ago.
Yeah. One thing I really appreciated that he said is the idea of borrowing, because that's exactly what we do. Like we have all these different guests come on, and like I will take some stuff from what Ben does, some stuff from what Goda does, some stuff from what Schlesinger does, and do it and add it into what I think is the most effective type of routine for myself and what I'm trying to do. That's what we're trying to do. We don't buy in totally to one idea. We take the usefulness or what we think is useful for us from all these different things and make it our ultimate program. And that's the kind of thing that we're trying to help you guys do for yourselves. You know, because I mean, you can totally buy in. There's no problem with doing somebody's full program. No problem there. But if you have some things that you're trying to progress on your own, you don't necessarily need to abandon those things potentially and switch and do totally something else. You can add. You can always just add things and take out things that aren't as useful.
And just try it. You know, just try some of the things that we mentioned and see if or something that somebody else mentions and just see if it does anything. And don't just try it for a day. Like give it, give things an honest shot. I think if you're really going to try something, I think you would know by the end of like 2 weeks on whether you're making any sort of progress or enjoying it or feeling slightly different from it. So that would be a decent amount of time to, but also you got to be, I would say like a month, but like people aren't going to always stick with stuff for a month. But I think if you're doing some of these things, like some of the things that we're suggesting, you can do them almost every single day or every single time you go to the gym. There's no reason why you can't, train your tibs or train your neck or like, some of these new things that we're starting to mess around with and explore, like your hip flexors. Obviously, you can overdo it, but a small dosage of it spread out over 2 weeks with not heavy weights, I think you'll get a good idea of whether it's going to fit into what you're doing.
Yeah, and don't do what I used to do, which is like, I'm going to try this new thing, and then you get in a couple days and you start Googling why it doesn't work. Because then you're not giving it an honest shot the way you just said.
Right. Want to take us on out of here, Andrew?
Yeah, sure thing. Thank you, everybody, for checking out today's episode. Please make sure you guys like today's episode and make sure you drop a comment down below. We heard some pretty incredible stuff from Ben Greenfield.
I like how when he said the breathing thing, I started doing the breathing thing, and I looked at you, and you're like, and we were like, ooh, we're kegling together.
I love how like I was doing it, and then when I do I crouched into it, and then I look up, and you're doing the same thing, and then we just point at each other. So that was funny. Yeah. If you guys are doing Kegels right now, let us know down in the comments below. And follow the podcast, or make sure you guys subscribe if you guys are not subscribed, and follow the podcast at Mark Bell's Power Project on Instagram, at MB Power Project on TikTok and Twitter. My Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok is at I am Andrew Z. And Nsima, where you at?
Guys, make sure to check out Ben, his book, his content. He has a lot of really cool stuff. So check him out, and also let us know. Comment below. Let us know what you liked in this episode. But at Nsima Inyang on Instagram and YouTube, and Nsima Inyang on TikTok and Twitter. Mark.
I'm at Mark Spelly Bell. Strength is never weakness. Weakness is never strength. Catch you guys later. Bye.